It took me a while to figure out Aliens Fireteam Elite 2 the right way. At the beginning, my squad and I died easily, wasted ammo, chose the wrong classes, and did not know how to react when the xenomorphs came in a horde. Only after testing a lot, making many mistakes, and learning from each defeat did things start to make sense. In this video, I bring 10 advanced tips that I wish I had known before. Things that changed my playstyle, improved my performance, and helped my team survive longer. If you are also scratching your head or want to avoid the same mistakes I made, these tips can save you a lot of frustration. I am Matthew, and the video is about to start. In the beginning, I treated each class as something separate. I chose one, picked the skills, and moved on. Only after a while did I realize that the game truly opens up when you understand that the specialist is the core of the end game, and that it exists precisely for you to mix everything you unlocked in the other classes. What makes all the difference is that by unlocking the specialist through leveling up the remaining classes, you can fuse primary, secondary, and passive skills from your entire arsenal. This means you are no longer tied to a single identity. Instead of just being the gunner or the doc, you become a well-assembled Frankenstein, taking the best of each class to create a build that makes sense for your style and your squad. In practice, hybrid builds focused on DPS plus debuff stacking are absurdly strong, especially against elite targets. You combine a pure damage primary skill with passives that increase critical damage, reduce armor, or apply status, and you still top it off with a secondary that controls or weakens enemies. The result is that those targets that used to stall the mission and drain all the team's ammo start melting in a few seconds. Mastering the specialist means understanding that the game stops being just about shooting well and becomes a game of assembling a skill puzzle. This is where you truly feel that you have evolved, that you understood the mechanics, and that you stopped just reacting to the hordes. If you want to play at the highest level, especially in the end game, investing time in testing specialist combinations is practically mandatory. With the arrival of the fourth player, the game stops being just about shooting well and becomes a team composition puzzle. In practice, anyone who ignores this at launch ends up suffering much more than necessary, especially on higher difficulties. In my view, the medic has become that invisible piece that holds the entire squad together. In tight maps, with xenomorphs coming from everywhere, having someone focused on keeping the team on their feet completely changes the pace of the match. You can even try to go without one, but the margin for error drops so much that any mistake turns into a wipe instantly. The machinist, on the other hand, is the space control that the game demands. Turrets and drones are not just extra damage. They create safe zones, delay rushes, and give the team time to reposition. In a cooperative shooter where positioning is everything, this is worth just as much as good aim. And with 4 people, this control becomes even more valuable, because the team manages to advance with more confidence. Finally, rounding it out with a marauder or duelist is what ensures that, after controlling and healing, someone actually clears the screen. It is this combination, control, sustain, and raw firepower, that makes the new 4-player composition shine. Ignoring this synergy is playing against the very design of Aliens, Fireteam Elite 2. Embracing it is what separates those who survive from those who become statistics in the hordes. The stun baton might look like a weapon to use only when everything has already gone wrong, but in my experience, treating it that way is wasting one of the most important tools in your arsenal. In Fireteam Elite 2, xenomorphs can close the distance quickly, appear from the flanks, and reach players who are focused in another direction. In these moments, the baton is not just for dealing damage, it is for regaining control of the situation. One of the best ways to use the stun baton is proactively. If a xenomorph manages to break through the defense line and is advancing toward you or a teammate, do not wait for it to get close enough to deal critical damage. Use the baton to stun it, interrupt its advance, and buy a few seconds of space. This short interval can be enough to reposition the group, reload your weapon, or finish off the enemy safely. It is also worth remembering that the baton is especially useful in corridors, tight rooms, and during moments when the team is being surrounded. In these situations, trying to aim and shoot while retreating can be risky, especially if multiple enemies are pressing at the same time. A well-placed strike can push the most dangerous xenomorph away and open an escape route, preventing you from getting cornered. So, do not think of the stun baton as a simple panic button. Use it to interrupt flankers, protect allies, and control the space around you before the problem gets too big. This shift in mindset seems small, but it can make a huge difference in the hardest missions. Instead of waiting for the xenomorph to reach you, use the baton to decide when and where the combat will happen. In the beginning, I only cared about raw damage. I chose the weapon that looked strongest, slapped on the mod that increased damage or ammo, and moved on. Only when the difficulties started getting tougher did I realize the game does not want you to ignore damage types. It practically demands that you understand and use this to your advantage. What changed a lot for me was starting to treat fire, ice, and electricity as different tools, and not just as decorations on the weapon. Against the most basic xenomorphs, thermal damage, fire, makes an absurd difference. They die faster, panic, and you gain time to reposition the squad. Now, when things get serious and advanced hordes start coming, cryo and electrical ammo become your main line of defense, because it immobilizes, breaks the advance, and gives you room to breathe. One point that took me a while to fully understand is that synthesizers and certain heavier units respond very differently to each element. Ice and electricity are great for locking these enemies in place, breaking the horde's formation, and stopping them from getting right up in your face. At high difficulties, ignoring this is basically condemning yourself to running out of ammo, surrounded and with no way out. The system of weaknesses and resistances stops being a detail and becomes a central part of your survival. Mastering this elemental system made me stop treating a weapon as the best or the worst, and start thinking about the right one for that situation. Today, before each mission, I already think, will I encounter a lot of hordes? Will there be a synthesizer? Do I need more control or more pure damage? Understanding and using fire, ice, and electricity the right way was what transformed my runs from surviving by the skin of my teeth to controlling the battlefield. Fireteam Elite 2 has evolved compared to the first one. The game simply punishes anyone who tries to play in safe spot mode. If you came from AFE 1 used to finding a corner and holding the line, you are going to get a quick shock. Because here, staying still has become almost an invitation to be surrounded. The new AI was designed to pull you out of your comfort zone all the time. Xenomorphs no longer spawn only from the front or from predictable places. They appear more dynamically, scale walls, come from the ceiling, and exploit gaps in your defense. The result is that the camping that worked before now turns into a trap. In seconds, what looks safe turns into a deadly siege from behind. In practice, this forces the squad to think about constant movement. Instead of locking down in a corridor or room, the team needs to rotate, change positions, use cover temporarily, and never consider themselves safe for too long. Rotation stops being just a nice tactic and becomes a survival necessity, especially on higher difficulties. At the end of the day, this change transforms the pace of the game. Aliens, Fireteam Elite 2 no longer rewards those who only react. It demands that you anticipate, move, and maintain pressure. Those who insist on camping will feel punished. Those who embrace constant rotation are the ones who manage to turn chaos into control and truly survive. At higher difficulties, especially starting from intense, friendly fire completely changes how I approach every combat. It is not enough to just aim at the xenomorphs. You also need to pay attention to where your teammates are, because a stray shot in the back can cause a massive problem in the middle of a horde. Therefore, I recommend that each player maintains a predictable line of fire. If you are covering the left side of the corridor, stay there. If you are in the rear, avoid suddenly stepping in front of your teammates. This organization sounds simple, but it prevents the team from turning a good defensive position into absolute chaos. The most common mistake happens during panic. Someone starts rolling, running, or crossing in front of someone firing an automatic weapon. I know that in the heat of the moment, the first reaction is to get out of the way as fast as possible, but many times this makes you step right into an ally's line of fire. Instead, try to retreat through your own lane, circle around the sides, and communicate quickly when you need to cross. The new crouch button helps a lot in this type of situation, especially when two players need to defend the same corridor. One can stay in front while the other crouches and fires from behind, creating a more organized formation and reducing the risk of hitting a teammate. But crouching does not replace good positioning. The secret is to combine clear lines of fire, predictable movement, and the discipline not to cross in front of the team. Infinite ammo weapons with overheating were one of the things that saved me the most when I played solo with bots. In the beginning, I treated the game as if it were always in a group. I ran after supply boxes, tried to save every shot, and when things heated up, I simply ran out of ammo at the wrong moment. With bots, who do not have the same notion of positioning and pressure as a human team, this resource management becomes even more critical. What changed everything for me was discovering the Machinist class and understanding how plasma weapons work via the heat system. Instead of spending traditional ammo, they heat up as you fire. If you fire in a controlled manner, taking small pauses for the weapon to cool down, you basically never run out of ammo. This sounds simple, but in practice, it is liberating. You stop running after supply boxes in the middle of the gunfight and manage to maintain constant pressure without worrying about hitting zero at the most dangerous moment. In solo mode, this makes an absurd difference. With bots, you cannot count on someone covering you while you go get supplies, nor on an intelligent division of resources. The machinist, with these plasma weapons, becomes almost a sustainable damage tank. You focus on positioning, maintain the rhythm of paused shots, and turn a huge limitation of solo play, ammo scarcity, into something that practically ceases to exist. Today, when I go to play alone or with bots, the machinist has become my almost automatic choice precisely because of this. It does not solve everything. You still need to know how to position yourself, use cover, and understand the hordes, but it takes a huge weight off your shoulders. If you also feel that resource management in solo play limits you a lot, testing this overheating and controlled firing mechanic can completely change how you approach the game. This tip goes straight against a very common instinct in cooperative games: hoarding everything for the boss or saving it for later. In Fireteam Elite 2, especially in the more advanced campaign missions and extraction rooms, this mindset turns into a trap. The game was designed to demand massive use of defensive resources now, not at a perfect moment that might never come. When you reach those moments where you need to defend computers or panels, the difference between extracting with the entire team or dying in seconds lies precisely in how you position mines, turrets, and other consumables. Spreading these defenses strategically around the objective creates layers of protection that delay the hordes, give reaction time, and prevent the squad from being run over by successive waves of xenomorphs. Saving everything for later tends to be a mistake because the game gives you no margin to economize. On high difficulties, the resources you bring are limited, but the cost of not using them is much higher. A weak defense at the right moment can mean losing the entire mission. The ideal is to think of consumables as part of the defense plan, not as a plan B that you only use if you have time to spare. In my view, the ones who master Aliens, Fireteam Elite 2, are those who understand that consumables are space control tools, not luxury items. Using mines and turrets aggressively and intelligently at critical moments is what turns a chaotic defense into something organized. And that is exactly what separates those who extract with style from those who become statistics in the hordes. One thing I learned quickly is that the motion tracker should not be treated merely as a classic alien sound effect. It also needs to guide the team's decisions, especially now that the group can have 4 players and xenomorphs can press from several different angles. When you identify an important threat, do not keep that information to yourself. Use the ping and show exactly where the danger is. I give immediate priority to spitters, elite variants, and enemies trying to flank the group. A regular xenomorph might seem more urgent because it is running toward you, but a spitter attacking from afar, or an elite approaching from the side, can disorganize the entire formation. If no one marks this target, each player might end up shooting at a different threat, and the most dangerous enemy remains free. The ping becomes even more valuable when the team is under pressure. Instead of spending several seconds trying to explain over voice chat where the enemy is, you just mark the target and let everyone react immediately. I like to think of this marking as a focus order. By signaling an elite or a spitter, the entire team concentrates firepower, eliminates the threat quickly, and only then goes back to dealing with the smaller xenomorphs. This is one of those attitudes that seems simple, but separate an organized group of 4 people from 4 individuals just shooting at the same time. The motion tracker helps you realize something is coming, but the ping turns that information into collective action. So whenever you notice a dangerous variant, an enemy in an elevated position, or any threat trying to flank, mark it immediately and make the team focus fire before the surprise attack turns into a cascading wipe. Focusing to the maximum on synths was one of the things that made me change my crosshair and target priority the most. I used to treat any robotic enemy as just another target. I shot wherever it appeared, tried to take it down quickly, and moved on. Only after a few missions where my squad and I took damage out of nowhere, without understanding where it came from, did I stop to pay attention to what happened when we hit the body of these enemies instead of the head. What I learned in practice is that, with synthetics, shooting the head is not just extra damage, it is the correct way to deal with them. When you hit the body, they short-circuit and, shortly after, explode in an area. The problem is that this explosion does not distinguish friend from foe. In tight spaces, with the team all together, you end up hurting your own squad by accident. It is that type of damage that feels unfair until you understand the mechanics behind it. Another point that changed my game a lot was starting to prioritize wardens among the synths. They are the ones that cause the most pressure and, when left alive, overly complicate horde control. Focusing on them first, always aiming for the head, greatly reduces chaos on the battlefield and prevents you from becoming hostage to random explosions in the middle of the gunfight. This is even more important on high difficulties, where every positioning error or poorly calculated explosion can turn into certain death. Today, whenever I see robotic enemies entering the scene, my first reaction is already head and prioritize Warden. It sounds simple, but this mindset shift took a lot of unnecessary damage away from my team and made me understand that in Alien's Fireteam Elite 2, knowing where to shoot is just as important as knowing who to shoot at. If you have also taken a surprise synth explosion in the middle of a mission, it is well worth practicing this head aiming and turning these enemies from a trap into a controlled target.